الآن يمكنكم المشاركة في مبادرة الأيام الرقمية تحت شعار انطلق بقوة مع جوجل، والتي يتناول فيها خبراء جوجل عناوين جديدة أسبوعيا مثل السحابيات، مهارات من جوجل، أندرويد، فلتر، ذكاء الآلة، فايربيس، ديزاين ثينكينج، مقسمة إلى دورات وورشات عمل يومية بالإضافة إلى مسابقات أسبوعية. شاهد الأيام الرقمية مباشرة على اليوتيوب وشارك رأيك وأسئلتك مع خبراء جوجل، واحصل على شهادة حضور في كل محاضرة تشترك فيها. هذا وأكثر من الأحد إلى الخميس ابتداء من الساعة 9 بتوقيت دبي عبر الرابط المبين youtube.com/gdgmena.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another session in Google MENA Digital Days. My name is Sachin, a Google developer expert, and today we have a very special episode where we are actually going to learn how to control your Android applications with voice. So if you're new to this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button where we have a lot of contents coming your way every day. So make sure to hit that subscribe button for future episodes. And for everyone who's joining us today, you do get an attendance certificate. So watch out in the live comment section. You'll get the code that is required for you to earn this attendance certificate. So super excited to have you all join us today. And as usual, for people who are new to the channel and for existing users, what I would like to do is just think about this specific screen, and we'll come back to this screen, and I would like to see how many of you guys got this right. So as I said, today's session is gonna be about controlling your applications with voice. So some of the examples over here, if you look on the top right, it says, hey G. Again, I'm not gonna say the entire keyword because I don't want to trigger all the devices out there. But let's say when the user says, hey G, book a hotel in New York on my app. So easily that would get the things done by opening up your app and booking a hotel in a specific location. The next thing we have on the extreme right is, hey G, I need a ride from my location to Burger Time with your application name, right? So let's imagine you have a rideshare application, and instead of actually opening up the application and going through a whole lot of things, you're just controlling the entire thing with voice. So with these two examples on the top, I would like to see how many of you guess the right example use cases of the pictures that's shown in this specific slide. Okay, so feel free to leave your thoughts and your interpretation of what each of these images mean. So whether what kind of an application or use case these are. Okay, so again, welcome to all the users that's joined us for the specific session today. For people who are new to this channel, once again, my name is Sachin. I'm a Google developer expert. I'm also CTO of Tupelo Life, which is a connected healthcare company based out of Dallas, Texas. I'm also a Google for Startup Accelerator mentor. I had the Google developer groups in Doha, and I'm an active mentor, writer, blogger, and after the pandemic, a YouTuber as well. So apart from the GDG MENA channel, I have my own channel where we do weekly live streams and a lot of topics on conversational AI, machine learning, augmented reality, and a lot of other topics, cloud. So we have a lot of these tutorial series that goes on to my channel, which takes you from the very beginning till the end. We'll have these links to the YouTube channel mentioned in the comment section as well. So feel free to look into the channel if that's something that's interesting. You want to learn something from scratch, feel free to go ahead and hit that subscribe button for that as well. So this is the channel, and I'm not going to go in detail over there. And for people who are actually interested in getting started with Google Assistant, there are excellent tutorials based on there where I've done a lot of these topics on how you can build for the Google Assistant. We have also a complete walkthrough of where a video between Jessica from Google, she's a developer advocate, where we go through the entire process of building applications on Google Assistants or voice actions. So with all that aside, coming back to focus. So today, our topic is going to be based on voice. And to some extent, everyone out there already, you would have the sense where the entire industry is already moving towards a voice first future. And when I say voice first, is more and more we are interacting with our applications and day-to-day use cases with voice. So one such example could be smart speakers that we have at our homes right now. It could be also your phones where you're talking to the Google Assistant. So whenever we talk about controlling specific actions through voice, we are looking at virtual assistants. And one such virtual assistant is the Google Assistant. So what is Google Assistant? Google Assistant is your own virtual assistant from Google to get things done for you in the best helpful manner. Okay, and as developers, why is it very important for you to actually start focusing on something like this? Is the fact that right now with the Google Assistant, it is available across 1 billion plus devices. So with your knowledge, you can get your application or your brand in front of these 1 billion plus devices. So which is a very crucial thing, right? And apart from that, you also have access across 19 plus languages and 80 plus countries. So the wide reach that the Google Assistant has is one of the most fundamental and important feature for you as a developer, as an organization, or as a startup to keep in your strategy. Okay, so once again, feel free to leave your thoughts and suggestions and comments in the live chat. We have moderator who's going through the chat sessions as well. So if you have any interesting questions or queries, we will cover that during the session as well. Okay, so there are a lot of these previous talks where I've discussed about how you can actually build conversational actions for the Google Assistant. But today, I would like to focus on a completely different thing. So instead of directly building for the Google Assistant, what can we do for existing applications that we already have developed, right? So one such case is, let's say, if you're a company or a startup or as an individual developer, you have built your own applications for Android or iOS. The Google Assistant is an excellent feature to build for that. Now, whatever we're going to talk today is very specific to Android applications, at least at this time of recording. So what you guys could do is you can actually extend the Google Assistant to your Android apps. Okay, and for that, some of the basic fundamental things that you need to also understand is actions on Google. So what is actions on Google? Actions on Google is a developer platform that lets you build actions that the users can typically invoke, right? So whenever you're saying like, hey, G, what's the weather today? So that's a specific action. That's a voice action that's triggering certain things in the backend and getting the right information for you. And all of this is done by the Google Assistant. And I did want to put this specific slide for everyone who's involved, because building for the Google Assistant is just not about being an Android developer. So if you fall under any of these categories, it is for you. So what does that mean? Is the fact that if you're a web content owner, you can use content actions. So let's say any website with recipes or how-tos or podcasts and news or more, you can actually use the content actions embedded within your site, follow a specific schema markup, and the Google Assistant will be able to extract the information from that. What we'll be focusing today will be more on the app actions, that is for if you're an Android app developer, right? If you're an innovator in the conversational space, I would highly recommend that you start looking into conversational actions and with interactive actions. So interactive canvas. So what that means is I'm sure you would have seen devices with smart displays. So there you can actually use interactive canvas where you can have a visual display along with voice-driven actions, right? And finally, for hardware developers, again, you have smart home integrations, as I've basically talked about this a lot in my previous talks. The virtual assistant or the Google Assistant is a classic example of how easy it is to control your home automation or to do your home automation. You can control devices using voice, and that's what I've been doing for quite a while. So, app actions. So, what is app actions? So, if you look at the whole concept of how Google Assistant is going to interact with your Android applications, it is going to be done through app actions. And what is app actions? It's voice enabled triggering for your Android apps. So, we are going to use app actions today to actually control our Android applications with voice. And don't worry, I'm going to show you exactly how we can actually get this from start to finish. So all the links will actually, if time permits, we will also go through a live walkthrough of how you can configure your own Android applications from scratch. What are the things that you need to keep in mind when you're handling app actions? Okay, great. So now we have an interesting thing that I want to all of us to actually reflect back at, right? So one thing is with Android Assistant, we have these integrations, which is built-in intents, Android slices, Android read it, and assistant sharing. So we'll go through all of this. And the reason for some of the app interactions or app actions is the fact that companies typically spend a lot of money actually for re-engagement, because what typically happens is you've done your great job building your Android and iOS apps, but typically with a whole lot of applications that's out there in the Play Store, what you see is your engagement within your application starts to drop after a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Then the user would probably stop using your application, right? So that drop off rate is really high, and we need to find a way of how you can easily help users interact with the application. And I'll come down to why controlling your Android applications with voice would be would play a very important role in actually getting this done. Okay, so this is a apps re-engagement challenge. So now, if you just pick up your phone right now and start looking at all the apps that you have installed, you'll see that you have installed quite a lot of applications over time. All right. And again, it's the same with my phone as well. I have a lot of these apps that I've installed within my phone. Right. So that's a classic example of everyone's phone right now. Now, the challenge is with these list of icons that you have on your phone, it's very difficult for you to actually find the application that you're looking for. Of course, depending on different devices, you can search for the app that you want, but that's not something that is readily available for the user, right? So, app actions. It will help you connect with your users on nearly 1 billion plus devices. It uses Google's natural language understanding, and it is also an excellent tool to fast forward into your app. And I'll tell you what exactly I mean by that. Okay. So here's the current scenario. Today we have a specific application. Let's call it Smos. So it's just a test application for this presentation's sake. Let's just start with this, right? So the first step that the user would do is he'll open up his launcher, go through all the list of icons that's available, and then he sees one icon and he finds the icon, finally clicks on it. Then he launches the application and he starts selecting different items, right? So first he selects the cracker, then the marshmallow, then the milk, then indicates the toast level, high, low, etc. and then defines how many. So that's a quantity. So if you actually keep looking at the steps on the left side, we are already into step 6. Then finally, you have a screen which says review your order. So you go through all of this and then confirm order, right? And step 8, your order is complete and you've done. So with this current scenario, you've technically, the user of your application would have done around 8 steps to do the interaction. Okay, this is great. It is great for the first time, it is great for the second time, but when it is a constant thing, you'll have to start thinking that the user would typically get tired of this process, right? So again, I would like to see how many of you out there joining us today live are using some kind of thing similar to this, or if you are an Android developer, just let us know in the comment section. We'll be more than happy to see how many of you have actually built something like this. Okay, so it's not to do with just this kind of application. Any application that we are looking at right now, the amount of interactions that the user does is quite a lot. Now here comes app actions, right? So with app actions, we have direct intent to fulfillment. So what does that mean? So here's an example, the same scenario, but right now, instead of actually launching the application, searching for it, clicking on the icon, we are going to simply launch Google Assistant, and we are going to say, if I go back, we're just going to say, order 1 milk chocolate, well done, from Smos. So with just a natural conversation with the Google Assistant, we are able to invoke our application. And you can see that it's opened up our Smos app, Android app, directly and gathered that information and gone directly to the last step. So all you have to do as a user is verify the information and click confirm order. So from 8 steps that we did in our previous example, we are now down to just 2 to 3 steps. So that's the power of voice, right? So more and more, the users are starting to interact with voice, and that will be a very key important component for anyone out there if you're developing applications as well. Okay. So here's an actual example of Nike Run Club application. So when you say start my run in Nike Run, it will automatically launch the application. And in fact, it's gone to the activity where we are starting the workout, right? So you can see that. So once again, you can see start my run in Nike Run Club, and it will open the app. Not only would that open the app, it has also started your activity. So when you're jogging, all you have to just say is talk to the assistant, and it will do the rest, and your app is already in the right page, right? So one of the most or key important factors that you need to keep in mind when we are building for something like when we are implementing app actions is there are something called as built-in intents. So we'll get to know more about built-in intents later on. But for now, just think about built-in intents as these are the different built-in intents that Google has already made it available, right? So if your application falls under any of these, so let's say if you have a restaurant application or some kind of a food delivery service, you can use the find restaurant built-in intent, right? Anything to do with exercise or activity, you can use track exercise activity. So you can use start exercise as another one, right? If you're looking to give nutritional information, you can use the get nutrition stats built-in intents. So there are predefined built-in intents that Google has already defined. So if your Android application falls into any of these categories, you can definitely go ahead and implement this, right? Great. So the next one is these are some of the built-in intents that's available. So irrelevant of any of these, you can simply just use the common built-in intent, which is to basically open up an app, right? We can also use some of the other things like get thing or get order, which we'll be actually showing live today during this session. We'll be using the get thing built-in intent as well, right? So if you're into transportation, fitness, communication, finance, food ordering, you have all of these built-in intents available for you, which you can use. So in the previous talk that I gave, we actually did cover this, but it was in the form of actions.xml, right? So I'm not going to go deep into this, but all I can say is check out one of the tutorials that's available in YouTube, especially on my channel, where I actually take you through from start to finish on how to use app actions with actions.xml. So if you have an existing product with which is in production and you'd like to actually use, you can actually use actions.xml, right? So the one that we are going to talk today is going to be more on something called as shortcuts. So if you're an Android developer, you must be already aware of shortcuts. If not a problem. We'll go through that specific process today as well. So how does it all work, right? So that's where we are going to get a little more into hands-on from now on. So it's very simple. I will paste, after this specific explanation, we will paste the GitHub repository as well for you guys to actually get started. Feel free to actually download that and you can follow it along, or you can just use this video as a reference to actually build your own. Okay. So here's a classic example. You have a user, right? So the user would launch the Google Assistant in the phone. So the user says, "Hey G, order a pizza from example app." So this example app could be your application. And when the user says that, it will take this conversation. The Google Assistant is the one in charge of interpreting this entire conversation. So from speech to text, translation happens here, natural language understanding happens here. The Google Assistant then understands that for this specific query in example app, I have a shortcuts.xml file that's built into the app, right? So it will check the shortcuts.xml and it can see that, yes, this specific example app indeed has a shortcuts.xml file. So that means, let me see if this specific capability is allowed. If it is allowed, then it will automatically fulfill that specific activity based on the user's input directly into your Android app. So it will launch your app and take you to that specific screen, right? So in this case, when you say order a pizza, it will just order a pizza and go into the final confirmation screen, or depending on how you want to actually use your Android application. So this is a classic example. So the link to this specific code that we are going to start right now will be put in the live chat. Okay. So first thing first, you can go ahead and download this repository, GitHub repository, put it into your system, and we will also come down to this screen later, right? So once you go into GitHub, this specific repository that we'll be pasting, so feel free to go and download this. And what we will do is we will be doing this step by step, right? So the first step that you need to do is make sure that you have the latest version of Android Studio. So in my case, I have already the application loaded. So once you download the repository, import the project into your Android Studio. And this is basically what you should see, right? You'll have a screen where your project is imported into Android Studio. Okay, so that's the first step. Now, the next steps would be you need to make sure that you do certain configurations. Okay, so what are those certain configurations? The first thing is you go to Android. If you're seeing the project as Android, you can do that. Or if you're looking at it from a project standpoint, you can also do that. So go to app and go to your build.gradle file. So over here, once you click on the build.gradle file, you will see that you will have to replace your application ID over here. So this application ID is unique to you. So make sure that you provide your application ID. So in this case, I've just given com.techwithsuch.task app. So this is my application ID that I'm providing. So this ID uniquely identifies your app on the device and in Google Play Stores. So for anyone who's used to building Android applications, this is a very common concept. So you'll have to, first step is to go ahead and make sure that you change your application ID to your own application ID. Okay. So once that is done, and even before you do all of this, I would highly recommend that you update your Android Studio to the latest version. Make sure all the SDKs are all up to date with the latest versions. Okay. So the next thing that we do is, once the application ID is set, the next step that you need to do is go to shortcuts.xml. Where can you find it? So under app, source, main, under resource, you can go all the way down to XML and you'll find something called as shortcuts.xml. So this is what is the most important factor for you to start bridging the gap between your Android application and the Google Assistant. So think about this as basically like a connector. So with shortcuts.xml in your Android project, the Google Assistant has an idea that, okay, there are something inside the shortcuts.xml. If I find any kind of capabilities for this app inside this XML file, then let me start looking into that. So that's the whole concept of shortcuts.xml. And as I mentioned before, for people who are actually having live production applications, so you can go to youtube.com/techwithsuch. Okay, so this is my YouTube channel. So in Tech with Such, you can actually go to Google Assistant tutorials, or you can search for this app actions using extend Android apps to Google Assistant. So this one uses the actions.xml, right? So it is similar to this, but instead of actions.xml, the new way is shortcuts.xml. So I will highly advise that you guys check out this specific video for anyone out there with production application and you want to actually use app actions using actions.xml. For everyone new, you can actually go ahead and start looking into shortcuts.xml, which is very easy. And also one thing to keep note is this specific approach is still in beta stage. So that's something that to keep in mind. But again, as I said, it's a wonderful way for you to actually keep your application ready to get the whole Google Assistant integration done into your Android apps. Okay. So with shortcuts.xml, let's go ahead a step further and understand what each of these means, right? So even before I actually come down to that, what this application does is it's a to-do list application. We'll show you a demo. I'll connect my phone. We'll go through an entire demo. So it's a to-do list application where all it does is you launch the application, you can see the list. In fact, why don't we actually do that? I'll go ahead and launch the application so that you guys can see the details. Okay, so here goes. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions or queries, feel free to leave your comments in the live chat. Okay, so here's the app. I'm gonna search for example application. So I launched the application right now. So as I said, all it does is it's a to-do list. So you can mark certain things as completed, and you also have a filter called active and completed, right? So a simple option over here. Now, with this being the application, I'll close this one. Now that you understand what the application is, let's see how you can integrate voice into this specific application. So the first thing that you need to do is go into shortcuts.xml file. In your repository, this would already be created. You would need to first add this one. So this capability, what does it mean? It's using a built-in intent called getThing, right? So get underscore thing is a built-in intent that Google provides. And based on that built-in intent, this is the specific target package that we are defining. So again, over here, you'd have to come and change your target package. And you can also see what is the target class. So the target class is task activity. So what this basically means is whenever this specific capability called getThing is matched based on the conversation from the user, it will then immediately pass that information directly to task activity. Okay, so that's basically how it works. Now the next one is again another capability. So over is open app feature. So we are gonna open the app feature and go through some of this called another parameter called feature. So what this will do is it will open up the app and we are passing a specific feature within the app that you want to open, right? And we'll be passing some values over there as well. So the same thing goes with this. So you see this active task and completed task. So in active task and completed task, what we are doing is the same. Open the app and then it is passing some parameters into it. And we will get to see what these parameters actually mean by while going through this. So for example, let's actually just start with the first one, right? getThing. Now, even before we do all of this, what I would also recommend you to do is if you haven't done so, go to tools, right? And make sure that you have something called as Google Assistant and App Actions Test Tool. Okay, so this is an important tool for you to actually test it. So if you don't have an Android app, you want to test out how the Google Assistant or the app action behaves and links to your application, you can actually use this app actions test tool. Okay, so you can, if you don't have that, you can actually go ahead and download that. So go to File Settings, go to Plugins, and under Plugins, you can search for Google Assistant. So here you can see that I've already installed the latest version of the Google Assistant test tool. So this plugin, what it will do is it will help you test the voice interactions between your between the Google Assistant and the and your Android applications, right? So that's basically what this tool does. So instead of you trying it out onto your phone, you can actually directly pass certain features and test it out directly in the Google Assistant test tool. And within the Google Assistant tool, you have the App Actions test tool, right? And you also have the Shortcuts test tool. So if you go into App Actions test tool, you can create a preview over here. So you can click on preview, it will create a preview. So another thing to keep note is you'll have to make sure that the app actions your Android phone is all using the same Google ID, right? So here's a classic example of how you can actually use getThing. And within the getThing, I'm passing something called as running shoes. And when you do this, it will automatically launch the application and take you to that specific um, item, right? So think about this as any kind of order applications or any kind of applications where you have built-in search into your application. So you can actually combine that with the getThing built-in intent, combine it together. So the user can just basically search for a specific item directly with voice without even going and clicking on your app and clicking on the search button and then typing it. So with just one conversation with the Google Assistant, it can open up the app and directly take you there. Okay, so that's basically what it is. And another thing to keep note is all of this would work only if the Google Play Store identifies that so and so application is available. So let me actually show you what I've done in the Google Play Store account. So in the meanwhile, if you have any questions or queries, feel free to leave that in the chat section. I'm also interested to see how many of them actually have guessed that thing right in the beginning of the slides that I showed. So what would be the different use cases that's required? Okay, so let me actually bring this up over here. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and created an app, a test application called Task App. Once you create an app within the Google Play console, what you need to do is you need to go to testing, click on testing, and go to internal testing, right? So over here with internal testing, what you'll need to do is to add your release over here. Okay, and how you can actually do that is by creating a signed APK or app bundle. So if you're doing this for the very first time, no worries. Within Android Studio, you can go to build and you can create like generate a signed APK. Make sure that you have Android app bundle, hit next, and create a new key store, fill in all this information, and then you're good to go. I've already done this, and whatever the app bundle key that you have generated over here, you'll be uploading that into the Google Play console. So why we do this is the fact that if you really want to test it out into with your own Android application or Android phone, you can actually load this application into your actual physical device like your phone, put your application inside this, and then when you're interacting with Google Assistant, Google Assistant will now know that okay, there is a application that is already verified by Google Play, so I can then see if that application is having shortcuts.xml. So in our case, we do shortcuts.xml and we can directly test it on our device. For people who don't have a physical device, you can also use an emulator and directly test the Google Assistant in the emulator as well. Okay, so you have all of these options readily available for you. Again, for the purpose of time, if you are new to some of these concepts, as I said, feel free to check out the videos that I've done, especially the previous video on app actions, where you would actually go through all of the steps step by step. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now, the next thing that we will do is to actually go ahead and try out some of these capabilities, right? So you can see my phone is connected. make sure your phone is connected. My Android Studio is able to detect my phone as well. I'm going to bring up my phone again. Make sure it's connected. Bring the phone up. Great. So now that we have this, let's actually go ahead and start looking at some of the things that we can do. So why don't we actually go ahead and try out some of these options, right? So the first thing that we can actually try is the get thing. So what you can do is I can say something like search milk in example application. So as you can see, it was very easy for me to actually just have a conversation, and you can see instantly we had the entire application launch and search for milk directly in the application, right? How cool was that, right? So imagine this, if I had to do the other way, I was like either going and searching for the example application, I was clicking on it, then I have to click on the top, search for milk, all of that. So once again, I'll show this. I can either say, hey, G or Google. I don't want to trigger other devices over there. I can say, search milk in example application. Search milk in example application. Instantly, right? So we have that feature working instantly. So that's the power of voice, right? Now with this done, we can actually move on to the next option. And if you're actually wondering what exactly, how is this possible, that is possible using this capability. So within the your shortcuts.xml file, you have this capability called open app feature. And what is the feature? Oh, sorry, get thing. So the first capability is this. So within our application, we are getting an item. So in this case, get thing is the built-in intent, and you're basically launching this specific task activity, right? And you're passing the parameters. So this thing dot name is whatever the value that you're actually passing to. So when in this case, milk would be the value that you'll be passing in your query. So behind the scenes, this is what is happening, and you'll be passing that information in your task activity and directly launching that information in your phone. So feel free to explore the code, see what exactly task activity has, so you'll have a deeper understanding of how easy it is. And the next thing that I would say is let's actually try to look at these active tasks and completed tasks. So we have another shortcut, and what does this shortcut do is whenever you say active task, show the active task, it will open up the app. So the capability binding over here is open the app, and the parameter binding over here is saying that it is a feature. And what is a feature? The values that it's passing over here is an array of active task synonyms. So what does this all of this mean? So again, keep a note of this. So we have this capability which basically opens up the app, and we have a parameter called features. So within the feature, we are binding that over here to these two shortcuts, which is active task and completed task. So within the active and completed task, we what we are doing is linking it to the open app feature. And within the open app feature, we are saying that the parameters that we are binding is the feature, and the feature of it is active task synonyms and completed task synonyms. So to have a better understanding of how exactly this is achieved, go ahead and click on this, and you will see what it means. So you can see like active, pending task. So whenever you say show completed task, in example application, it will open up that. Or if you say show active, just active, show active in example application, it will do that. Or show pending in example application, it will trigger the same active task. So that's basically what it means, right? So, and if you want to tweak where exactly, how did you do the example application, where have you defined example application, it's very simple. You go back to your resources, right? Search for values, and under strings.xml, all I'm saying is the app name is example application. So in this case, you will have your own application as well. So go ahead and do that. So great. So we have basically configured everything that we need for our application. So in this use case, what we are going to do again is we are going to try out different things right now. And we will also see how we can have multiple conversations within the same app. So I hope you guys can see my screen. Show active in example application. Show completed in example application. So let's try that again. Show completed in example application. Show active in example application. I'll probably have to say that a bit properly. But again, you can understand the concept, right? So between all of this, if I just go back to all, so you have a list of all the items. So with 3 activities or shortcuts that we have implemented within the application, the get thing is similar to actually searching for milk, right? So instead of me manually coming and searching for this, we were able to do it through voice. And the other 2 that we did is we can also try out. So for example, within the shortcuts, so instead of active, you can also say pending, right? So I'm going to try that one right now just to show it will trigger the same active task. Show pending in example application. There you go. So with a simple setup, you were able to exactly get the right kind of information at the right time just with the power of voice and the Google Assistant, all using the new app actions shortcuts. So I hope this was actually pretty clear in terms of how you need to execute it. Again, feel free to check out the GitHub repository as well as the YouTube videos in my YouTube channel. The links for that will be provided in the chat section. So both, I will also provide the Twitter link if you guys would like to connect with me in Twitter, have any questions or queries, feel free to do that. Send me a direct message and I'll be more than happy to help you out with that. So now coming back to the slides. So with shortcuts, to wrap up, shortcuts is an easier way for you to actually start building or bridging the gap between your Android application and Google Assistant. Bring the power of your voice to your Android application and basically voiceify your Android apps. So coming back to this specific picture that I asked for, now that you have seen all of that, let me know whether you guys can actually guess what kind of activities each one does. So for example, this one is actually an example of controlling your social media posts using voice, using the Google Assistant. So you can basically use your voice to actually post things on social media. So that's an example of that. Here's an example where you're actually doing either like a shopping built-in intent based on shopping. So you can get the specific items and delivery and all of that. So that was basically this. And over here on the right, this is an example of where you're actually using the Google Assistant and the voice to control your fitness related applications. Okay, so I hope you guys actually got that right as well. And coming back to, if you're interested to build for the Google Assistant, I would highly recommend that you can check out this specific complete playlist on the Google Assistant. The links again would be provided in the live chat. So I can see that it's already out there. You can go ahead and click on that. You can also have the links to this slide, which will actually have all of this content as well. So at any point you feel that you want to go through some specific concept, you can actually use the slide. The links to these complete playlists, all of that is available either through the slide or in the YouTube channel as well. So we can go through. I would highly recommend that you look through this app actions first, extend Android apps to Google Assistant. It will actually take you step by step from the beginning till the end, right from updating your Android Studio and what are the steps that's required. And finally, we have the ultimate chatbot tutorial series. If you guys are interested in building your own chatbots from scratch and want to integrate that to your website or your Facebook Messenger or your WhatsApp, all of these, we have entire thing built. Or even if you want to build your own custom chatbot from scratch, you can do that with Flutter, all of that. So feel free to check out these tutorials, which will really help you guys. And I'll also be doing live streams soon. So I would love to see you all join in during those live streams as well. And until then, hope you guys stay safe. And thank you all for joining today's session. It's again wonderful to be back in GDG MENA Digital Days. And I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. With that, once again, my name is Sachin, and see you all in the next one.